G'day. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone has had a great off-season because now it's time for the winter split to begin. And I figured it was a good time to do a power predictions. It's basically a power ranking, but I wanted the wording of it to really reflect a different nature of how we'd go about it. More personal opinion involved in terms of who we think are going to place where. But I still personally made it very results-based and took a lot of the recent results into account in order to get my predictions. But our two guests, Amphis and Jules, Amphis on Ground Zero and Jules, who just recently left Ground Zero for Cringe Society, I wanted them to be able to just choose whoever they felt was doing well and would do well at the end of this one. Now, recent tournaments, realistically, since the end of the last season and the major, the only real events we've had are the league finals, the end of the round robin for the league, and our weekly RLO Masters, which is the equivalent of the grid for OCE, which is happening every single week, every single month, and run by RLO, if you want to catch up with that one. Those have been really telling how all these new rosters stack up, because after the major, OCE had a massive shuffle, and I will be making a video more specifically about the roster changes in the future, but you can get a little bit of insight into it here. Now, Forbidden was number 10 for us, placed a little bit differently because Jules had actually ranked probably a team that we'd put highly at number 10, but they haven't played too much. That's the old Fury roster. They're waiting till Event 2 when Hawk, who many people may know from his appearance at DreamHack Montreal, comes of age, becomes 15, and then he can play. So not too much to actually see from him here. He's not in Event 1. They forfeited it. And they've been playing with Luna and Morse across the RLO Masters and actually doing pretty well. They did get a top 4 placement in last week's RLO Masters, which is probably why they're here in the top 10. Now, Calcium, brand new team formed from Riv, who was on the Sneaky Boys roster, completely disbanded. Sprat was on Direwolves, which completely disbanded. And Loki, who's been around for a while, but really only just making a comeback now. And they won the RLO Open Division. They look like a really strong team. They look like a real contender here for, getting into the top 8. But who knows if they can actually manage that and whether they can go further. Number 8, Vort Central. Bit of a weird one because they haven't played in any of these off-season tournaments. They declined their invite for the RLO Masters because they were busy Thursdays, and they didn't play in the league either. But they came top 8 of every single RLCS, so you have to give them some form of props for that. They are a consistently solid team. I wonder if there's kind of implications of them not playing in these tournaments that will affect them in the future, though. Overt, they made a roster change, dropped Yeatsy, picked up Matro, and that seems to have made a huge difference to this team. From a team that sometimes was struggling even to be top 10, made it into one top 8 during the last split, the first split. Now they're in a position where I actually think they're going to make top 8 at least 2 out of 3 events of the split. Maybe 3, all 3 of them if they play the way they have been. They came top 4 and top 8 in the RLO Masters recently, and they've taken series off top teams, which a lot of people haven't been able to do recently. Cringe Society and Renegades both taking losses to Avert recently. Canberra Havoc sitting probably as this very strong middle line, very much comfortably above everybody else in the pack, and not doing well enough against anybody above them at the moment. They were 2-2 in terms of series against Cringe, but the last 2 series went to Cringe. It was the 2 series before that with the new Cringe roster that they managed to take those wins against. And they look pretty strong against Mind Freak as well, but the rest of the top they really struggle against. Honorable mentions as well, just the teams outside of the top 10 right now. You'll recognize Cowabunga from the Major. Hazard, not the old Hazard. This is a new Hazard lineup. This is the old Ferox lineup. of Homie, Azza, and Hazza. And EMF 5 is the old Hazard lineup that came top 8 in the major as well. Good and Useful were the team that I was saying probably should be in this 10th position. I put them 9, Amphis put them 10, and that's because they took wins over Dire Wolves and Ground Zero on the weekend in the top 32 in order to qualify for top 16. I guess I have one more note about that as well. Riot Gaming have been pretty solid. They've picked up Steve, S-Steve, and they've been looking a bit better, like a bit more of a contender as well. Number 5, Mind Freak, Caveman Ben, and Fever have been continuing the grind, but Requiem has been busy. That's why I put them number 5. Very interesting that obviously I'm putting them 5, Jules Amphis putting them 4, and they still end up being in 5th place. But they have been doing well. They won the major. Unfortunately, their results since then have not been up to par. And as a roster, as Mind Freak, that have been going back since the end of RLCS Season 9 when they picked up Caveman Ben, their only series wins in RLCS Season X onwards against top 3 teams have come from that major. So they have a somewhat, 2 wins and like 16 loss record against the top 3 teams, and they've continued that as well since that major. But I think a lot of that is based off Requiem not necessarily getting enough time to practice recently. Dire Wolves, they've made a roster change and it's come up big for them. They were a team kind of challenging the top 4, but now they're a team that are in the top 4, maybe even better. They've won an RLO Masters. They came second in a couple of them, including the monthly finals, where they took down a couple of the big 3 and eventually lost to Renegades. Unfortunately, now they've updated from here just today. They've now lost 14 games in a row to Renegades after winning the first series they came up against them with this new roster. So I think that might be a major sticking point for Dire Wolves in terms of winning a tournament. If they verse Renegades early on, that is going to be a trouble. Now, number 3, Cringe Society, fallen out of favor a little bit. They're actually kind of higher now than they were potentially a little while ago, just after the major, because Mind Freak had obviously taken a huge leap then. But they've replaced Torsos with Jules, and they're playing a very long-term game. I'm not sure they're going to be the best in this event, but I think by the end of this split, they will be pushing, towards the very, very top. Ground Zero, they're actually looking very much top 2 right now. They've got a 3-0 in series against the current new CS lineup, Cringe Society lineup. However, all of those games have gone to the final game, whether it's a best of 7 or a best of 5. So not too telling there in terms of how they really power. 2 best of 7s going to game 7, 1 best of 5 going to game 5. That could be really interesting. All of the Dire Wolves games all going to game 5 as well. It's certainly a very interesting matchup there, but currently Ground Zero looking really strong, but maybe will get overtaken by Cringe Society later on for me. Number 1 are Renegades. Even though they had a rough end of RLCSX Split 1, they are now dominating in the off-season. They won the league. They won every single RLO Masters except 2, one which they didn't participate in, and one which they ended up losing a little bit early, coming top 4 to Dire Wolves. That was the week that Dire Wolves took them down. You can kind of see in their record, 21-3 series record in RLO Masters. There was another one just, 30 minutes ago in which they've now put themselves at, I think, 26-3 in series record. And they almost went the entire bracket without dropping a game till they versed Cringe Society in Game 7 in the grand final and took the victory. So they're very comfortably number 1 right now, mostly because they've stuck together as a roster and done really well there. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the YouTube video. I hope you guys like it. Also wanted to take the time to thank Amphis and Jules for coming along. If you want to see the full 1-hour video of me, Jules, and Amphis discussing it, it's over there on my Twitch channel. I'll have it linked below. But thank you all for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.